This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Each week, this show is committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions. We're so glad you're joining us this weekend. Tom, my friend, how are you? What's going on in your world?
Not much. Love summer. I can't wait for all the June gloom to go. And then it really be summer when the sun comes out in Fry July. So looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, and I know that Southern California, of course, has an influx of folks coming in for vacation. And you're right in the heart of it, being right next to Disneyland, right?
Yep, you got it. Anytime you get close to Disney, of course, if you live here, you stay away from Disneyland, but that's just the way it goes. And you might go to Knott's Berry Farm because they have the boysenberry pie and stuff like that. Makes me hungry.
Yes. You know, I celebrated my 9th birthday at Knott's Berry Farm. Fun fact.
Are you serious?
I did.
Just last year, right?
Right. I wish.
Yes.
But that's a core memory because it was the first time I ever went on a roller coaster that went upside down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And one of my clients is the guy who used to be the chief engineer for all the roller coasters at Knott's Berry Farm. So
really?
he got tired of all the roller coasters and moved to Havasu City.
Oh, wow.
In Arizona. He said, I want to be as far away from roller coasters as I possibly can be.
Right. I don't blame him. I'm sure it's a lot when you're testing it and have to ride it multiple times and all the things, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to pick up our conversation. I know we got through some of these in our last show together. The title of this episode, this series, if you will, is Woulda, Coulda, and Shoulda. What are we talking about? Well, we have Bob and Betty Boomer, who retired at age 67, thinking that life would be on easy street. But in reality, what they discovered is that they ended up playing woulda, coulda, and shoulda, meaning there were several things that they wish they had paid attention to prior to retiring. And unfortunately for them, it was a little too late. So we want to uncover these items so that you don't end up playing that same game. And Tom, I know that, we always say it's never too late to get started, but obviously the earlier someone gets started thinking about their retirement planning, the easier it's going to be for them.
That's right. This show, we talk about that Bob and Betty Boomer are living in the woulda, coulda, shouldas right now. But this show is for Gen Xers. This show, you say, hey, I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer. Okay, I'm glad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the first Gen Xers are turning 60 this year. I get it. I understand.
Which is my generation, by the way. It still blows my mind to realize that. But yes, it's the reality.
I know. You're on deck.
Yep.
Kristin. You're on deck for retirement. And if you're a Gen Xer or you know what that means, then you're in that age group just 10 or 15 years before retirement is basically that core. And you are a Gen Xer. You need to be getting really ready for retirement. Let's look at the Bob and Betty Boomer and see what things they're looking back on retirement and say, I would have done this if I'd have known better. I could have done this and I should have. I should have done that, but I didn't. So that's what we're looking at in this show. We're talking to Gen Xers to make sure you are getting ready. And that's who we're working with more and more, Kristin, than we are baby baby boomers. Baby boomers, you're there. You're in
Hmm.
retirement unless you're not retiring until you're, quite older. But the youngest baby boomers who, they're 61 years old now, and we're now moving on to Gen Xers.
Yep. All right. So there's lots to pay attention to, no matter where you might fall in that scope of age ranges. But let's just recap real quick what we've already covered in this series. We talked about underestimating your expenses. We talked about your investments not being diversified enough and not factoring in healthcare costs. Those were such robust ones, Tom. We ended up spending the whole episode just focusing on those three items.
Yeah, you got to know how much you're spending. You got to make sure your investments aren't all in one basket. That was the main thing. And then as we get older, healthcare becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger part of most people's budget. Says, not mine. Okay, great. You haven't reached that point yet, but before you know it, you could be in that position. Ask for prayer for a good friend of mine in Indianapolis, and he and I reconnected after decades of not seeing each other last year in May of last year. And this year, about 2 months ago, he found out he had lymphatic cancer, and he's
Oh,
just spent
gosh.
21 days in the hospital.
Hmm.
And he and I were talking over the weekend, and he said, Tom, he said, I was just telling somebody a couple of weeks ago, he said, man, I've been so healthy. I've just been so great all my life. Just a couple of weeks before, boom, I was in the hospital for 21 days of chemo. And he said, you cannot imagine the bill for that hospital bill. So you've got to prepare for healthcare costs because it might not hit you yet, but it will be coming. Pray for my friend. His first name is Greg.
We'll definitely be praying for Greg. What a warrior to fight through that. But
Yeah,
you're right, Tom. You never know, and we can't take any day for granted, right?
exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, prayers for Greg going up, and I know our listeners are going to join in on that as well. Going back to our list here of woulda, coulda, shoulda. Next up, not maximizing your Social Security benefits. And Tom, I know that you shared with me prior to today's show that you recently encountered someone at one of your live events that this was the case, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do the right thing on your Social Security. Kristin, nationwide in 2023, the last year we had real solid statistics, and they came out and they said that 41% of the average person in retirement gets their income from 41% of it comes from Social Security. So making that decision is really, really important. And if you're married, it's a double important decision. And you need to make sure that the way you choose yours is coordinated with the way a spouse would choose theirs. Or if you're just living with someone, or you have a partner, or you have a companion, and you're going with them, and you're sharing the cost of the household, making sure that you make the right decision on Social Security is so very crucial. And that's one reason, Kristen, we have over 100 Social Security workshops across Southern California every single year because
Mhm.
we want to make sure and connect with people. And if you help somebody get 41% of their income right in retirement, you've really helped people.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, it's a huge piece of it. And I think what a lot of times folks don't pay attention to is the cumulative effect of Social Security. Because on the outset, they might look at the monthly amount and think, oh, it's not that big of a difference, right? Between claiming at this age versus waiting till later on. But when you add that up over your lifetime, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars that you are leaving on the table inadvertently.
Yeah, and here's what really happens. A lot of people get to retirement and they get tired, okay? They get tired of their job. And I've had so many people come in, Kristen, in the past, couple of 3 years for sure, since COVID, it seems like, and they say,
Mhm.
my company sold, and they sold to foreign investors or to a private equity firm, and they've come in and they're just running it entirely different. My boss left. I've got a new boss. I don't like one lady came in, she said, I don't like the people I work with. I don't like the person I work for, and I don't like the company anymore. I'm ready to quit. I'm
Mhm.
ready to get out. So what do? You've still got to have income. So you start looking at, what do I have for income? Bingo, Social Security at 62. You can start drawing it, and you go to draw it, and you don't realize that for every year before before your full retirement age that you decide to take Social Security, you're taking about an 8% per year ding. So
Mhm.
you could be making significantly less than what you had planned on. Oh, I'm going to work till I'm 65. I'm going to work till I'm 67, and that's where my Social Security will be. Well, it certainly couldn't be that much less. No, it could be as much as 30% less. So if you're looking to get 2,000, you could actually get 1,350 or $1,400 from Social Security. Big difference. And the cumulative effect that you bring up, Kristin, is so important, because you say it's just 1,300, just 1,400, where I could have gotten 2,000. That's 600 a month. That's $7,000 a year. That's $75,000 a decade. If you live 2-3 decades, that's 150 to $225,000. That'll pay for a lot of stuff just
Mhm.
because you had to turn Social Security on early. So you got to be careful. That's one thing you've got to be careful for.
So remind our listeners, what happened when this woman came into the Social Security workshop and she had turned it on too early?
Well, one lady came in, and I think what you're referring to is, I mentioned one time recently about a lady came and she had turned it on too early, and she had taken, I think, 4 months of Social Security, and
Mhm.
she realized what she had done because she took it too early. And we pointed out to her that for 1 year, 12 months, you can do a do-over. You can actually go back to Social Security and say, I made a mistake. I don't want to take Social Security at this point. I want to pay back every penny that I've taken out of the account so far. You pay it back, and it's like it never happened. They will actually do a do-over if you realize that you've taken it too early. So it's really important that you do. And we talked about, when we introduced this segment, about you want to maximize Social Security. I like the word better, optimize
Yes,
Social Security.
I do too, because it's different for every single person.
It is different for every single person. Now, how are you going to find out what's best for you? When we come back after the break, I want to talk a little bit about married couples and taking the breadwinner approach, and what does that mean. But here's what I want to point out that's so crucial about Social Security. Everybody listening to me, you'd all agree you have a different Social Security number. I want to make the point that every single person out there has a different optimal time as to when you should take your Social Security. I joke around a lot about not listening to Bob at the water cooler or Sally in the break room telling you everything they've discovered as to the optimal time for them to take their Social Security. You need to take it at the best time for you. That's what we hold out to you, listeners of this program. Set up an appointment with us. Come in and meet with one of our advisors who are all trained by the National Social Security Advisors Group, and we will show you and lead you to the options you have as to the best time for you to take it. But you've got to make the call.
That's just one of many things that the team of Mosley Wealth Management will be able to help you navigate through when you come in and receive your very own customized, personalized retirement blueprint. And it's completely free. So to claim yours and schedule your appointment today, all you need to do is call 888-930-5609. We'll be back with this discussion continuing and a whole lot more for you right after this.
Social Security is easy, right? The question is, should I take it now or later? Well, there are dozens and dozens of ways to take Social Security if you're single, and even more if you're married. This one-time decision can also affect how much you pay in taxes, how much you receive in lifetime payouts for you and possibly your spouse. You could increase your nest egg by tens of thousands of dollars just by being informed, and unfortunately, the Social Security office is not allowed to give you comprehensive financial planning advice. You've paid into Social Security for decades. Don't you want to make sure you optimize your retirement income? Build your Social Security benefits into a retirement income plan with all of your assets. Get your own tailored, no-cost Social Security income strategy with Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management. 888-930-5609.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we are continuing our conversation on all the wouldas, couldas, and shouldas Those regrets that a lot of people have when they go ahead and retire without having the proper plan in place. You talk a lot about Bob at the water cooler, Sally in the break room. For this series, we've been talking about Bob and Betty Boomer. I would like to see caricatures of all these people one day, Tom. We need to come up with that because I always have this vision in my mind when you say those names.
You know what? They will go without being named. We've got actual people that are our avatar clients,
Okay.
and we've selected them from our group of 700 or 800 clients that we've got. We've selected those people and we say, "That's our key client. That's our avatar client." So we do have those people in mind. I just wanna let you know, but they will never go named, and they will
Right.
never know they are our avatar client.
Yes, yes.
So
But it's important that any good business has that avatar because you need to know who you're speaking to, right? And we love being able to help all of you who are listening avoid making some of the common mistakes that so many people make in the absence of proper planning. And that's why we're talking about these woulda, coulda, and shouldas and how to avoid them. Before the break, Tom, we were talking about Social Security and we spent a lot of time talking about claiming it as an individual. But you also mentioned the importance of claiming strategies for married couples. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about that because I know you work really hard with your clients to help both parties in a coupleship optimize their benefits.
well, the reality is I read a survey, 2 or 3 years ago, and it talked about that if you're both 65 and you're married, there's a 92% chance that one of you will spend at least 2 to 3 years single at the end of life. One
Mhm.
of you. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be the lady. Most of the time it is because ladies live longer than men, but it could be the man. We've got some great clients who are male and they've lost their wives and they're single in their upper ages, and the decision you make as a couple in when to start taking your Social Security should be made jointly. Now, listen to this, with the end in mind that when there is only one, you're setting that person who's left up to have the best possible financial prospect of surviving. Okay,
Mhm.
of winning in the game of money, and so that they don't run out of money. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Let's bring that back into Social Security. Any couple that both have Social Security due to them,
Mhm.
there's a breadwinner and a non-breadwinner. The breadwinner is going to be the one who made the most money, or at least paid in the most to Social Security. Sometimes if the one is a business owner and they were able to take certain deductions, they might have made a lot more money, but they paid in less to Social Security because of the way our tax laws work. But the breadwinner is going to be the one that has the higher Social Security. Now, when it comes to turning on Social Security for a couple, two faucets of money there, okay?
Mhm.
What we try to do is, if we can, build a plan so that the lower Social Security gets turned on first. Why would we do that? So that the higher Social Security, the breadwinner, continues to grow. And
Yes.
it continues to grow. As we said earlier, if you turn it on earlier, you miss out on 8% growth a year. Well, if you leave that breadwinner alone and allow it to continue to grow, it will grow at about 8% per year, just naturally, just because of your aging process. It also grows, Kristen, whatever the cost of living raise is for everybody,
Yes.
even if you haven't turned it on. So like last year, this year, when we turned January and we turned the calendar into 2025, if you had allowed your social to continue to grow and you did not take it in 2024, you got an 8% bump.
Mhm.
Plus, you got a 2.7% bump because that was the cost of living raise for the year 2025. So you got a 10.7% bump if that breadwinner, in this case that we're talking about, had not been turned on. If you had turned it on, you would only have gotten a 2.7% raise. So let's go back to two people. Let's go back to a husband and wife in the majority of those cases. If you don't turn on the breadwinner and you can allow that to grow as long as you can, then at the end of life, when there's only one of you left, that lower Social Security that you turned on early, it goes
Mhm.
away.
Right.
The breadwinner that you allowed to continue to grow, and last year it would have grown at 10.7 if you had not turned it on in 2024. That breadwinner is what is left with the surviving spouse. So, what you're doing is you're making a proper decision so that by when do you turn on your Social Security as a couple, you're setting up that surviving spouse to have the best possible way to make sure that they have the money they need in retirement because their breadwinner has continued to grow. It's a great strategy if you can afford to do it. And that's what our advisors
Mhm.
can walk people through. We put together, we don't probably mention it enough on here, Kristen. We put together a complete retirement blueprint that talks about income, inflation, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. But that income part is the Social Security part. And when we look at that Social Security, we're going to look at that breadwinner option. Is there a way to let that breadwinner option grow so that it'll be there for that surviving spouse toward the end of life? And that's one thing we do, one of about 10 different reports, 10 different analysis that we put you through in your financial world so that we can put together the retirement blueprint that's great for you. All of our advisors do this. All of our advisors are trained to do it. We coordinate and cooperate in putting those plans together, regardless of which advisor you work with, regardless of which of our 5 offices you're in. We will put together a retirement blueprint for you that'll look at this breadwinner option and say, hey, how are we going to help you at the end of life make sure you don't run out of money? That's our major goal.
Tom, so much goodness to unpack there, but I do want to just let you all know if this is resonating with you, if you would like to schedule your time to get your complimentary retirement blueprint, it is so easy to do. All you need to do is call 888-930-5609. Now, this is not something that Tom and the team just pick off the shelf and mail to you. No, it's customized to you. They will start with a blank sheet of paper after you come in. They'll find out more about you, your concerns, your questions, your needs, your desires for your retirement, and then they will build you that complimentary retirement blueprint from scratch. But you need to reach out. So again, we encourage you to call 888-930-5609. Specifically about Social Security, Tom, another thing that I do want to highlight is that a lot of financial advisors out there don't have these kinds of conversations with their clients regarding Social Security, regarding maximizing the breadwinner. What they will say is, oh, we don't do that here, or oh, just go talk to the Social Security Administration, because they're not.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Social Security is not going to help you.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to say, right? This is what advisors will say, though, a lot of times, if they are not doing that comprehensive, holistic financial planning process. You and the team specialize in doing it. And one of the main reasons you're so passionate about it is because you and I both know that the Social Security Administration cannot give you advice. They are allowed to give you information, but they are not allowed to give you individual personalized advice based on your situation. So the only way you're going to receive that is by working with the right kind of advisor who can show you how to optimize your benefits to maximize your Social Security income. And that's what you and the team do.
You know what, Kristen? I guess I've been weird all my life and I'm different when it comes to financial planning. And let's just take the gloves off. You're going to hear shows on the radio. You can make money over here. You can make money over here. You can grow over here. We can get you this much growth. And they promise, they're even called investment companies. You see the advertisements on the weekend at all the sports shows. Okay. We want to make sure you never run out of income the rest of your life. And that's why we focus so much on Social Security and optimizing that Social Security for you. We want to make sure that you don't run out of income. And if you are married and you leave a spouse, that they don't run out of income. It is a different approach. Do we make money for people? Absolutely, we grow people's assets. But is that our number one priority? No, if you're getting ready to retire, you're 50 years of age or older, and you're getting ready to retire, and you want to start building a real retirement plan because you move over from concern about your lump sum, you move over in retirement to you better be concerned about your income for the rest of your life. It's not your lump sum anymore. It's your income to make sure you're not going to run out of money. And I don't make any apologies for that. We want to make sure that that income is secure. You know what? Here's the key. In your 60s, we call that the go-go years of retirement. If you're not sure you're not going to run out of money when you're in your 80s, then you'll be reluctant to go spend the money that you want to spend in your first few years of retirement, going to all the places on your bucket list. Now, I always mention Italy and Bora Bora. Those are mine, okay? But yours may be different. But you won't do that if you're not sure that you have an income plan that's going to give you income for the rest of your life. One lady told me one time, in the best statement I think I've ever had made to me, she turned around at the door after she had gotten her retirement blueprint. We had put it in effect. We had the kickoff meeting, is what we call it. And she turned around. She says, you know what I love about you? You're concerned right now that I'm able to go on my African safari, but you're also concerned that when I turn 85 in 20 years, if I'm still here, I'll be able to go to the grocery store. And that's exactly what you need. You lump sum, that's great. How much are you growing? That's great. But are you going to run out of income when you're in your 80s? That's what we build so that you don't have to worry about that.
If this is something you would like to not have to worry about, we encourage you to reach out to Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management to get your very own complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609 is the number to call and schedule your time to come in for no cost, no charge, and no obligation, and they will gladly build that retirement blueprint for you. 888-930-5609. We'll be back with more right after this.
Which will you spend more money on in retirement, food or healthcare? Do you take your investments out of the stock market now that you're retired? How do you know if you've saved enough to stay retired? Will your Social Security check be reduced in the future? How do you produce income from your nest egg to fight costs like taxes and inflation? At Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley and the team take the guessing out of retirement planning by devising a written plan that accounts for all of your concerns. The bigger question, are you going to be okay in retirement? Find out the answers to your retirement questions by calling Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management. 888-930-5609. Income, investments, Social Security, Medicare, longevity, health care. We cover these solutions and all of those other questions on your mind to answer, are you going to be okay in retirement? Call Tom Mosley and Mosley Wealth Management for your own complimentary retirement review. 888-930-5609.
Welcome back. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management, based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. If you're just tuning in and joining us, we are sharing with you several things that we don't want you to have regrets about in retirement. We're calling the series the Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. The reality is so many people retire without a solid plan in place, and as a result, they have these regrets. We want to help you avoid having the same regrets, making these same mistakes. All right, Tom, it's time to talk about our next item on the woulda, coulda, shoulda list. Are you ready for this one?
Let's go. This is the one everybody hates. It's a 4-letter word.
It is a 4-letter word.
Yep.
Taxes. But the woulda, coulda, shoulda is not having a tax strategy. You know, it's interesting, Tom. I think folks don't often realize that taxes are one of the biggest detriments to their retirement income. It has to be planned for. You have to have a solid strategy in place.
Ed Slott is known as America's authority on IRAs and 401ks and their taxation. He's a New York CPA tax attorney. I'm very happy to say I have trained with him 4 days a year for the past 8 years. And I am what he considers and have reached the level of a master elite advisor with Ed Slott and his group. And he says that taxes are the single biggest factor that'll separate people from their retirement dreams. And here's simply what I mean. Let me just ask you a question if you're out there. How much do you have in your 401k? And you've got a number in mind right now. Just if you don't remember precisely, just remember the last time you looked at it. How much do you have in your 401k? And I've got to follow that up with a statement. That's not all your money.
Mhm.
That is not all your money. You do not have that much money. That much money's in your 401k, but your Uncle Sam has his hand in your pocket. And Uncle Sam recently married this new lady, Iris, Aunt Iris. She spells her name IRS. And man, they're coming after your 401k and taxes in so many ways. It's the single biggest factor that'll separate you. And I wrote the highlights for this show and the different segments of this show, and I
Mhm.
titled this one exactly like you said. I didn't have a tax strategy, is what people say,
Mhm.
but I've got to change that, Kristen.
Okay.
You've got a tax strategy.
Mm.
And it's the one that Uncle Sam and Aunt Iris have put together for you.
Whether you
And
realize it or not, right?
whether you realize it or not. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, when you take money out of an IRA and 401k, you have to pay it at regular income taxes. And if you don't need that money right now, when you turn 73, you reach required minimum distributions. It's required, there's a minimum, and you have to start taking money out. And in a very weird way, Kristen, people begin at about 73 to 75 to begin generally to spend less money in retirement. But in your 401k and your IRA, these required minimum distributions are going to require you each year to take more and more and more out as a percentage of your 401ks and IRAs. And there's all
Mhm.
kind of rules. And if you don't take the right amount out, they don't really mind because they get to penalize you an extra 25%.
Yes, on top of the tax you already owe.
Top of the tax and
Yep.
top of the penalty for not taking it out in the timely manner. So there's all kind of rules, and you may be sitting there scratching your head. Right, that's exactly what it is. One of the things that when we started last segment, I talked about we want to make sure that nobody ever runs out of income the rest of their life. That's
Mhm.
the reason I started my business June the 8th of 2000, excuse me, June the 8th of 1995. And
Mhm.
here we are in June of 2025, 30 years later. And about 3 years after I started my business, tacked on one more thing as a mission for our company. We exist to make sure that people pay, that they never run out of income the rest of their life. But number two, that they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes. And
Mhm.
that's why we work with our clients to do Roth conversions. A lot of the big box firms don't like to do Roth conversions because if you do a Roth conversion, basically what you're doing is, with the historically low tax rate system we're in right now, and looks like it might be continued into the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, with those historically low tax rates, we encourage some of our people to consider paying more tax now and converting those IRAs into a Roth IRA, because in the IRA or the 401k, the key word is forever. You're going to forever be taxed on every penny that comes out of that at regular income.
Mhm.
In the Roth IRA, once you pay the tax and convert it over at these low rates, you never pay the tax on it again. You pass away and you leave that to a spouse if you're married, they never pay tax on it again. If you're single or you're married, and the second one of you passes away if you're married, or you're single and you leave it to your children, they never pay the tax on it again. Once you pay the tax in that Roth conversion and you get that money into a Roth IRA, taxes are done. You
Mhm.
never pay the tax on them again. That we find can be hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of value to most people if you develop your own tax plan rather than the tax plan that Uncle Sam and Aunt Iris have for you. And so you need to, I would think, Kristen, that people need to come in, sit down, and meet with us, even if they've got an advisor, and you say, well, he doesn't really work with me on taxes. He tells me my CPA, needs to work with you. And your CPA's thinking your advisor does it, and your advisor's thinking your CPA does it. Nobody's doing it
And it's
except
the runaround, yeah.
it's a runaround. So, how much money can I save? Kristen, you are so adept at telling people how to use our tax calculator that's
Yes.
available to all of them, why don't you tell them a little bit how to use easemytaxbill.com?
I would love to. Tom, as you were talking, I was just thinking I could hear through the airwaves people going, well, I wonder how much of a problem this is for me. What's my potential tax bill going to look like in retirement? So if this is something you're curious about, the good news is we have a free resource for you to use. It is the tax bill calculator, and you can utilize that calculator by going to easemytaxbill.com. That's EASE, mytaxbill.com. Now, when you visit that site, there's going to be a simple landing page. It's going to ask you for some basic information, no strings attached. You'll put in your name, your current age, so that the projections for your tax bill will be accurate throughout your lifetime. You'll also put in how much money you have saved up in tax-deferred accounts. For you, that could be a 401k or a traditional IRA, things of that nature. And then you'll put in the email address you want the complimentary report sent to, and you can also play around with and adjust your assumed tax liability along with your assumed growth rate on that tax deferred bucket of money. Then once you click submit, two things are going to happen. Boom, side by side, you're going to see the difference between the government's tax plan for you on the left if you do nothing versus how much less you could pay in taxes on the right-hand side if you enact some of these tax saving strategies that Tom has been talking about today. But then you're also going to receive a 4-page report emailed to you. It's completely complimentary. You'll be able to see the breakdown of your numbers. You'll see the projections for those required minimum distributions. And, Tom, once folks see that side-by-side comparison, you can't unsee that. And I know that so many of our listeners have used easemytaxbill.com. They've gotten that report, they've printed it off, and then they've come in and said, help me fix this. Help me put a tax strategy in place so that I don't have to pay any more to the IRS than I am legally required to pay. So again, we encourage you to utilize easemytaxbill.com.
Yeah, I recently had an engineer came in
Mm-hmm.
and he said, when I first went to easemytaxbill.com, I thought no possible way.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, then I worked through the math of that 4-page report and he said, possible way. Okay. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I totally understand what's going on because we just make those basic assumptions. We want to help you, but we can't help you until you reach out to us.
And so again, in addition to using easemytaxbill.com, that's really just the first step. Awareness is the key, but we invite you to take it the full step and get the help that you need from Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management by getting your complimentary retirement blueprint. So to schedule yours, all you need to do is call 888-930-5609. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how they can help and serve you. We'll be back with more right after this.
With today's rising interest rate environment, have you considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates go low, you might be able to refinance your homes, your car loans, and even your credit card rates because it could help you keep more of your own money each month. When interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rate environments may not work for you in a high interest rate environment. So find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Don't look down at today's higher interest rates. Find out if a retirement refi could work for you. Call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management at 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. With rising interest rates, it might be time for you to refi your retirement.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. And if you're just tuning in, we have been talking again about woulda, coulda, shoulda. This has been a 2-part series, all the different ways that folks are regretting things that they didn't pay attention to and take care of prior to retirement. We're sharing these things with you because we want to help avoid making those same mistakes. So next up on our list, Tom, this is a huge one. And I think it's one that folks often don't want to think about because it's unpleasant to think about, but you have to think about it. And that's not planning for long-term care.
Yeah, it's humongous. And People don't like to think about it. They think if they put it out of their mind, it's like when somebody says something and they make a comment that's not like totally positive and somebody says, "Don't say that." Like saying it might make it happen.
Mhm.
You've got to address real hardcore issues. Now, I've had 50 years of this experience. You
Right.
say 50 years. I thought you'd been in business 30 years. I was in the ministry for 20 years before I was 30 years now into the financial services ministry. I'll call it that. Okay.
Mhm.
And people don't like to talk about the end of life issues. They're going to live and be just as active and just as excited right up to the last day that they die, and then boom, something's going to take them. Well, there's some people that go that way, but most people don't. Most people, if you'll look at surveys and studies and you'll just look at real life, things don't go the way they plan. They get chopped off shorter. I told the story recently on the show of a dear couple that started working with us about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and they came in, they said, "We've got 10 years to work. We're going to really top out our retirement." And he had a job, she had a job. They were both making about $250,000 a year each.
Mm.
And then within 2 years, they came in. He was in a wheelchair,
Mm.
unable to work ever again for one day the rest of his life because of a stroke. And she had just been laid off from this big $250,000 a year job. And she was 63 years old. And she said, "I really don't think I'll ever find anything that'll pay me half of that again." Guess what? They had to retool not only their retirement plan, but they had made the decision not to address long-term care when we first put their retirement blueprint together. And so
Mhm.
now they could not get long-term care for him because he had had a stroke, and he's not going to be eligible for it for the rest of his life. And there may be other ways to cover it. There are other ways that we've got to cover it, but they've also not topped off their income by making $500,000 a year until they were 70. They've chopped that off by 7 years. So I'm just telling you, in life, in case you are so young in life, I don't want to say immature, so I'm trying to figure out other words to realize that things don't always work out the way you planned, and you better plan on long-term care, and you better plan on the need for somebody to take care of it. Some of you are saying, "Well, won't Medicare take care of that?" You're right, they won't.
Mhm.
Medicare will not take care of custodial care. They'll take care of certain number of days of skilled nursing and certain number of days of being in a nursing home, about 100 in a lifetime and maybe a few extra, but then it's done. It's over. You're on your own with your plan. Now, I have for years advocated people not necessarily buying a long-term care policy,
Mhm.
but maybe just having a long-term care plan. What's our plan in case at 62 one of us has a stroke, or I have a stroke if you're single? How are we going to not be a burden to our children? How are we going to be not be a burden to our finances and wreck the family finances, wreck my personal finances because I need to take care of long-term care? Very expensive. If you've ever had a parent that had to go into a nursing home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very expensive, and you at least need to have the sit down where you go through the what ifs
Mhm. Yep.
and you dedicate money to the what ifs. What if we need more income? What if we need more money to pay for a nursing home or a memory care or those kind of things? How are we going to cover those activities of daily living if I can't do the things like feed myself, bathe myself, clothe myself, walk? I can't transport out of the bed. Who's going to do that? I'm going to
Mhm.
have to hire somebody to do that, even if I don't go into a nursing home. You better address it. You better have it built as a contingency in your plan. Now wake up. Wake up. You have homeowners insurance in case your house burns down because you want to live in a house the rest of your life. You
Mhm.
have You have car insurance, auto insurance in case somebody runs into you and you get hurt, or you run into somebody accidentally and they get hurt, so you don't have to bear the brunt of all of that money. Some of you have life insurance so that there's money there for the family when you're gone to pay off mortgages and those kind of things. You have Medicare, you have health insurance in case you go into the hospital or you need to go to the doctor or you get some kind of illness. So you've passed those things alone. You say, well, what in the world would take care of me if I needed future income, or if I went into a retirement home and I went into a memory care unit or an Alzheimer's unit, or what if I, just wanted to stay at home, but I needed some help? Well, some annuities right now, fixed indexed income annuities, are really built to address all of those. And I know I used for some of you a forbidden word when I talked about annuities, but name me another product that's going to do all of those things,
Hmm.
that's going to possibly address your income, that's going to possibly address if you can't do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, it'll double the payout for 5 years. You say, what? Yeah, it's just simply a provision built in there. It'll turn on for income for the surviving spouse to live after you've depleted some of the funds. So maybe you want to consider some of those products to insure yourself and insure your income and insure the need and the cost of long-term care, at least in some part, so that if you ever run into those things, you got it covered. You can stick your head into the sand, or you can address some of those things by maybe looking at some of the products that are out there to help you. You've got a choice.
Tom, as you were talking, it just really was impressed upon my heart. This is why the planning part is so important. You talked about the woman who said to you when she came in, I appreciate that you're just as concerned about making sure I can go on my African safari trip now while I'm healthy, and the fact that I can still go to the grocery store when I'm 80. But it's also this long-term care piece, which is an unknown for so many folks. But it's so stressful to not have a plan and to just hope everything's going to work out. That's not a plan at all. Having the right planning done in place can make sure that you are accounting for these long-term care costs. And there are alternatives, as you have so eloquently stated. There's options that folks may not even be aware of to help them pay for their care. So again, planning for this is so crucial. It's so important. It's one of the most loving things that you can do, not only for your family members, but for yourself. So you don't have to go it alone, even though a lot of this might feel new or scary. Trust us, sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich and just trying to avoid it doesn't serve anybody, and it's not going to help you. So you need to have a plan in place. And really, Tom, this brings us to our final thing we want to talk about in this series of woulda, coulda, and shoulda, which is most people wish they had started all of this planning sooner. Why don't more people do it? Well, because they're often overwhelmed. And we know that the number one fear is running out of money. We also know that the number one cause of financial failure is procrastination. Don't let that be you. Tom, I know you've seen this and you want to help more people get over this hump and not procrastinate and not put off this planning any longer.
Well, I think also, Kristen, they're overwhelmed by all these choices. I mean, we've talked about having a budget, knowing what you're spending. Number 2, we've talked about not having all your eggs in one basket, not chasing the latest, greatest thing that's out there. We've talked about healthcare cost and just Medicare. We've talked about making sure your Social Security's done right, your taxes are there, you're covered for long-term care. People get overwhelmed by all of this, and you're being led to not address these things. You say, what do you mean? You're working with somebody who's just an investment advisor trying to grow your money, that works for an investment company, and they're not real retirement planners, okay?
Mhm.
Not financial planners. They're not retirement planners, making sure, number 1, you never run out of income the rest of your life. And number 2, as you take that money out of those IRAs and 401ks, you pay as little as you're legally required to pay in taxes. Vanguard, the stalwart of do-it-yourself investors, came out with a study a couple of years ago that said that people who work with a financial planner are more than 100% better off than the people who don't work with a financial planner. They have more than twice as much money when they enter into retirement. Does that speak to you? Does that say why you need somebody to address not just your growth and not just your investments, but address your income in retirement? which includes your Social Security, maybe annuities, inflation and what that's going to do. Yes, we address your investment as well. That's number 3. Number 4, your taxes. Oh, we don't work with taxes, some people say. We do. We help you with your taxes. Your health care. You say, we don't sell commissionable products. We do, because covering your healthcare costs, it's crucial. And number 6, your legacy. How are you going to leave it? We can't write wills and trusts, but we can send you to people who do, and they can write them the right way so that Uncle Sam doesn't get your money when you're gone. That's your retirement blueprint. That's what we offer if you call in for our help from this show. Thanks for listening to us today. Kristin's going to tell you how you can get in touch with us.
I am. But before I do, Tom, I just want to wrap up by saying a huge congratulations from all of us at Mosley Wealth Management and those listening on 30 years in the business, 30 years of serving and loving folks in this financial services industry. Again, June 8th, 1995 was the day you started in this field. And wow, the thousands of lives you have touched and changed for the better. It is such a joy to get to serve along with you. And we send our love and congratulations. And here's to 30 more and beyond. Right?
Our 30th anniversary show. How about that?
Exactly. Well, if this is something you would like help with, again, we've narrowed down. You don't have to be overwhelmed by these choices. We invite you to reach out and connect with the team of Mosley Wealth Management to get your complimentary retirement blueprint. And that number to call to schedule yours is 888-930-5609. Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management Incorporated. Mosley Wealth Management and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Insurance and Financial Services.